traditionally, we would go through very, very distinct buyer's markets and seller's markets. None of this applies anymore, though.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Change and the Market. My name is Peyton Beck, and joining me, as always, is CEO, entrepreneur, and two-time, almost three-time best-selling author, Chris Masiello. Chris, how are you today?
Hi, Peyton. Good to be with you. Great.
So, Chris, today we'll make this a quicker episode, but we had just a meeting with our company that a really, really good question came up that we wanted to address. It kind of, once we heard it, I think we both knew, like, oh, this is a great question. And it's this: it's when is it a good time not to buy or sell in the market? And the answer you had was really, really good, but it's always, to just kind of go on it for a sec on my side, it's a really funny question that I've had in myself of just like, I don't want to miss out, but I also don't want to get duped. So there's got to be a best time. It can't be now. I have to play the system.
Right.
And you'd actually, the advice that you'd given was so simplistic that it's just, I'll let you take it from there.
Well, look, it's a perfectly reasonable question, right? The average purchase price in the United States of a home is a little bit north of $400,000. So these are not, inconsequential decisions. The answer to that, there's like a simple answer, and then there's an extended answer, right? The simple answer to that, though, is, well, when is it a good time to buy and sell real estate? And when isn't it a good time to buy and sell real estate? Well, it's a lot like anything else in life. It's a good time when you're ready. It's a bad time if you're not. So I think when you take a look at it in terms of, well, when we're ready, like, what does that mean? Well, are we financially ready to move? Do we have a compelling need? Maybe a want, that's okay too, right? Are we emotionally ready? Are we ready to leave where we are, right? And so I think if you can answer all those questions, then whenever now is, well, now works. And I think markets, and we've talked about this before, all markets, I don't care if it's real estate or pork bellies. I mean, all markets are impossible to time. And although you have to give some thought to it, you can't overthink it. You just can't. So that's kind of like the short version of the answer. Let me give you just a little bit of a longer version. Is that there have been times, so I've been doing this for a while, right?
Like 10, 15 years, right?
Yeah, well, it's been a beat. I think this is my 40th year. And I started young, right? I think I was 19 when I started. And so I've seen a lot of different markets and a lot of different influences. Like today it would be technology, right? And maybe sometime it will be worth an episode to kind of go through, the lineage of the industry, because it is kind of interesting. Some of it's kind of funny too, especially with technology today versus what technology was, 35, 40 years ago. But we used to have very, very somewhat predictable and wild swings in the market. So, depending on what your vintage is, and how many times you bought and sold houses, this will sound familiar. We would go through very, very distinct buyer's markets and seller's markets. Now, traditionally, none of this applies anymore, though. Historically, though, prior to the pandemic, if the average days on market was 6 months or less, this is being measured in months now. Okay? Like today, we measure everything in like days and weeks.
Yeah,
it was a seller's market. If a house was on the market for more than 6 months, it was a buyer's market. And so, there used to be like this pretty reasonable discussion about, well, if it's a buyer's market and you're a buyer, it's a good time for you. If it's a buyer's market and you're a seller, well, maybe not so much. If you are both a buyer and a seller in the market, well, then it's a push. And so they were very distinct cycles that were really identifiable. Well, where are we today? Well, this is like pretty cool. We have low inventory, so no doubt, okay, that finding the property, can take a little bit. And of course, yes, interest rates are up, but also wages are up. and inflation is down. Now, that doesn't totally compensate for it. However, they are compensating factors, right, in our weekly lives of paying our bills and paychecks and all that. And you buy your house today, but because there's low inventory, it also means that because we're on the positive end of the supply and demand curve. That means there's the demand. It means we still have appreciating sales prices. So my $400,000 house I buy today, on average, is worth $420,000, right? A year from now at 5% appreciation. So when you think about it, this is probably the most balanced period of time that we've had. Inventory is tight, so finding what you want is a chore. Everybody gets that. When you find what you want, it's a really good investment because next year it's going to be worth 5% more. And we've really not had that. It's really not been a thing. So this consistency that we have in this market, I believe makes it, really the best time, not dependent on whether you're a buyer or a seller, that this is one of the best times to actually be in real estate to whatever extent you want to be in it, because you have predictability and consistency.
It really speaks to what we talked about earlier of, is it the right time for you? Are you financially stable? Are you emotionally ready? And you cannot have to worry about all the other stuff, I'll say, and just kind of do what feels and what's good for you and your family. I think it's awesome. It's perfect. I don't like all the other noise. That's too much stress for me. So being in an environment where I can just feels right, let's do it, is perfect.
Well, I was at a medical appointment, some years ago, and the attending nurse asked me, she looked at my chart, looked at my name, and put two and two together, and she started asking me real estate questions, which happens a lot, which is fine. But, it's fun to answer real estate questions.
Sure.
And she said, well, when's the best? My husband and I are thinking about moving. Like, when's the best time? And I was like, well, and I think actually the market was kind of off a little bit, now that I think about it. And I think that's in some way what sponsored the question, right? It was more of a buyer's market, and they were looking to relocate to another part of New Hampshire, right? And a more expensive part of New Hampshire from where they were coming from. And that was the answer I gave her. It was like, well, are you financially ready? Yes. Are you emotionally ready? Yes. Now works, right?
Sounds like you're ready.
And that just resonated with her, and she kind of, closed her clipboard and dismissed herself pretty quickly to go call her husband, which was kind of funny, right?
I wonder if she had seen a Zillow, or I don't know the time period, but maybe she.
It was pre-Zillow.
Okay. Well, maybe she had seen a house for sale sign on the way to work, and she was like, "Oh, I gotta go. If now's the time."
Well, that would be a fun conversation about just the history and just the lineage of the industry. But anyway, yeah. So I don't think it's a complicated question, and I think anytime that we're as humans, right? Anytime that we're presented with something that's high stakes, $400,000, right? It's a lot of money, or maybe high complexity, which in this case, buying a house is, it's a good investment. However, it's very complex, right? Because of the regulatory environment, mortgage and titles and all that.
It's anything but simple. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. I think our minds naturally drop into overthinking it. No harm, no foul. It's just when you're ready, you're ready. And if you're ready, then go. If you're not ready, pause.
Yeah, then that is perfect advice, I think, to wrap up this episode and leave us for the weekend. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Change and the Market. Chris, excellent advice. Appreciate it as always. And if you like this video, feel free to comment, share, and we'll catch you next week on Change in the Market.
Great. Good to be with everybody. Take care.